Hi, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to the Coaching Call podcast. On this podcast, we'll cover various types of coaching by trainers in sports, martial arts, fitness, and business. We'll discuss each coach's methods to getting the most out of their respective athletes or clients and how they attempt to change the platform in which they coach. Join us on a fun adventure as we discuss unique coaching styles. Coaching is a universal part of how we get others to get something done. Join your host, Raphael, and his guests on this unique journey in coaching.
Hi, I'm Sifu Raphael, and this is the Coaching Call podcast. If you enjoy this episode, please subscribe and leave a review. This episode was made possible by listeners like you. June, thank you so much for joining me on Coaching Call. How are you today?
My pleasure. How are you doing?
I'm exceptional, getting better every day, just a little bit.
That's good.
Yeah. So I am thrilled, and I know we've had some communication in the past, but I think that today is the day that we get to know who you are. from when you were a little girl all the way to today. So
does anybody really want to know that much?
I want. Listen, we're gonna have listeners, but I'm the biggest curious guy right here, and I want to make sure that we get to know who you are, because this is how we fall in love with you. This is how we get to know you, right? So I get deep and down, that's just me. And so tell me, where did you grow up, and who would you say were your biggest influences before the age of 10 or even around that time?
So I didn't have an upbringing like most people. I really didn't have much of a childhood. It's interesting. I started doing an advanced astrology class, and my moon is opposite Mars. And people that are born with moon opposite Mars apparently were born under extreme circumstances, like being born in the middle of a war zone. And quite honestly, that's what it felt like growing up. Both my parents were extremely abusive, physically, emotionally, sexually. They were hoarders. They grew up in the Depression. They came from families that didn't display love. So I was never told that I was loved or hugged, or I was just beaten and thrown out the door every morning. So my influencers basically were my friends' families, because fortunately I had the wherewithal as a child to know that this wasn't right, and go to their homes and see that they had loving, caring families. And they taught me how to eat with a knife and fork and sit at a table, and, invited me for holidays. And I'm grateful for that. So those were my influences. I was able to observe and learn from others, which a lot of people can't. A lot of people have to learn the hard way, and myself sometimes too, because I'm a very stubborn person. And it works sometimes very well and sometimes not so well. I don't give up easily, but sometimes it's to my own detriment.
So where did you actually grow up?
So up until the age of 10, I grew up in Holbrook, Massachusetts, which is a very small bedroom community outside Boston. And then my dad kidnapped the youngest 5 of us when I was 10 and moved us to the Rhode Island, Massachusetts border. And I grew up in that area until I got married at 21.
You said kidnapped.
Yeah. So, and I didn't even understand that I was kidnapped until only a few years ago, believe it or not. My oldest sister's 10 years older than me, and she was old enough to know what was going on in the house and the family, obviously more than I was, because I was a young child. And she knew that we had been kidnapped, and she tried to get custody of us, because at the time she was 19 or 20. And she was married at the time, and her husband was like, we can't be taking on all these kids, we just get married. We can't do that. But yeah, he told us that my mom was crazy and that she threw us out and didn't want us. And that was not the case. He literally picked us up and took us. Yeah.
So did you have any contact with your mom?
I didn't for 11 years. I invited her to my wedding and she showed up. And I was afraid of what condition she would show up in, because now I'd been told for 11 years that my mother's crazy. Plus, I grew up in a hoarding household. It was nuts. And I was shocked. She showed up. She went out and bought herself a beautiful satin dress of every color so that she would match everyone else. She had her hair done, and I think it was one of the happiest days in her life, to be honest.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, you talked about abuse, both physically, mentally. You were kidnapped. Were you kidnapped by the abuser?
Yes. Well, they were both abusive, but he was more abusive. Yeah.
Mm. So he obviously he was very selfish. And I'm not saying, I don't want to say anything negative about your dad because I don't know him, but selfish in where he wanted to keep you guys to himself. He didn't want to share, I guess.
It was about a whole control issue. He had always been abusive of all the children. He was abusive of my mother, which I wasn't really aware of because I was young and I wasn't even in the house half the time.
Mm.
And he was a business owner. He was not, he put this big front up. It's amazing. I grew up knowing that, what you see on the outside when you drive by a house is not necessarily what's going on the inside.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember in first grade, walking home from school and talking to the other kids, and one of the girls disappeared. Her entire family just packed up overnight and left.
Wow.
And I heard the kids, my older brothers and sisters, talking about it, and they were saying that the police were going to arrest him for sexually abusing his daughter. So they disappeared overnight.
Wow.
And I'm saying to myself, oh, hadn't happened to me at that point in time because I had older brothers and sisters that were being abused. Right. But I found it interesting, and I always remembered that. And then as I got older, and we did get investigated by DCYF, and you're afraid. What do? You don't tell them what's actually happening because you don't know what's going to happen. They're going to rip you out of the house. You just don't know. Yeah.
That's so scary. That's so scary. And I think that's what happens to a lot of people who are abused. They don't want to speak up because they don't know what's on the other side.
Well, and as a child, you blame yourself.
Mm.
You do. There's no way around it. You think it's your fault. What did you do wrong? Right. You just don't know because you don't have the experience at that point in your life to be able to process everything that's happening. It's that simple. You don't have the life experience.
Mm-hmm. So you had your sister who's married, and she wanted to help you guys out. She wanted to adopt you, but her new husband said, "Wait a minute, we just got into this relationship, right. Kind of, right?" And for many of us, we understand, and for many of us, we understand how your sister wanted to step in and kind of be your savior, but she was not able to, and so you stayed in that abusive household. What level would you say the abuse was at when you left?
So I left literally when I was 16. I moved in with the first guy that looked at me, who was older than me, because my younger brother had come up behind me with a knife and put it in my side and threatened to kill me. And my younger sister, I think at that point, had been targeted by my father because I was not home a lot. I was involved in a lot of extracurricular activities at school. He had sent me to culinary school starting at 10. The kids went to summer camp. I went to culinary school for the summer and then, trained for 10 years because somebody had to cook for the family, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
Incredible. So he had the idea of even giving you guys some type of normalcy. I mean, summer camp, culinary school. I mean,
I don't know. For me, it was, I had to go because somebody had to feed the family. I did the grocery shopping. I did the cooking. I did the cleaning, the laundry. I don't know how many years the younger ones, they were young. I toilet trained my youngest brother. He was only 5 years old at the time that we all left. And the next one up was 7 or 8. And he was very abused by the neighborhood kids. And my sister, I had an older sister that came with us as well. And she didn't know how to handle him because he was probably ADD and a little wild. And,
Mhm.
and I mean, she would lock him in a closet for 6, 7, 8, 9 hours.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Gosh. So not knowing how to handle a
Yeah.
situation, not knowing how to help someone who actually probably needed something different, right?
Yeah.
And so you left with the first guy that said hello.
Yeah.
Uh, and but at that point, he's older.
And that
Both,
ended up being an abusive relationship.
and
Yeah.
that's abuse right there, right?
It ended up being an abusive relationship.
Mhm.
As soon as, I mean, I got a job and started working, and he immediately stopped. And then he had a gambling habit. He was gambling constantly. And then I
Mm.
found out he had a drug habit. And his mother moved in with us immediately because she was in an abusive relationship and left her husband. So
Oh,
now we're living in this 1 bedroom, almost a studio apartment. She's sleeping on the couch, and she was addicted to drugs. They were all addicted to Valium.
mm,
And then he tried to control me. You can't go anywhere. You can't do anything. You can't wear those clothes. He
mm.
sold my car to a police officer
Oh
who
my
was
goodness.
crooked, and forged my signature. And I went to the police department. I'm like, listen, I didn't sell my car. This was forged. And they're like, well, he's an officer. What do you want us to do? So
Oh,
now I had no vehicle. So I literally left that relationship with nothing but the clothes on my back. I went and
probably the
slept
best
on.
move you did at that
Yeah.
time.
Well, it started to get physically abusive. He threatened to hit me, and
Mm.
I left, and literally with the clothes on my back. And I slept on my brother's couch for about a week, and his girlfriend was very jealous of me and didn't want me there. So it took me a week to save up enough money from my job back then to be able to rent a furnished 1-room studio apartment. And that's what I did. And I never missed a day of work. If I had to walk 10 miles to get there, I did, or I would bum rides. This was in the day when you didn't have cell phones. All you had were pay phones around.
Yeah.
Very different times. Yeah.
Wow, such resilience that you had back then, and I'm sure it still carries with you today.
You're
When
raised
you,
as a survivor.
yeah,
You're
absolutely.
raised as a
When
survivor.
when you consider what you went through, the lessons you had to learn, the adversity you went through, it definitely shows that can either build you up or tear you down.
And it broke most of my family. There's only 2 or 3 of us that truly have done anything with our lives and have tried to overcome all the adversity, and the rest are all, they're either alcoholics, drug addicts, or dead.
Wow, sorry to hear that. Sorry to hear that. But it's all we have a choice. We have a choice. We can follow in those same footsteps, or we can say the buck stops with me. Right?
We do. And so we can also, so again, some people learn the hard way, and I tried to learn through observations. So I made a point when I raised my children every day. We don't even get off the phone with each other unless we tell each other how much we love each other.
That's awesome.
We see each other. It's just the biggest hug in the world, and telling each other how much we love each other when we see each other. And I made a point of that because I did not want my children growing up any differently. And I never told them really what happened in my family or my life until I wrote my autobiography about, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago. And I asked them not to read it, but their wives did because they were curious. And I raised them trying to be normal and not knowing that their grandparents were, or their grandfather was abusive or anything like that. I never left them with them, but
Right.
I would have them at my house for holidays, and we'd go visit them on their birthdays. We'd take them out to eat. I wanted them to have as much of a normal family as possible, to see what it's supposed to be like. I was the person that took care of both of my parents when they were dying.
Mm. Well, it's you obviously had to forgive.
I
And
did.
both
Yeah,
of you did that.
absolutely.
Yeah.
That's where unconditional love comes in. I wouldn't be the person that I am if I hadn't gone through the things that I went through, as terrible as they were at the time. I look
Mm.
back now and say, listen, I can relate to other people at this point that have gone through what I've been through, because I've lived it. I survived it. I went through it. I overcame it, and I understand it. And, as crazy as it sounds, everybody chooses this life before they come here. And
Mm.
when I was with my mom when she died, and I watched her soul leave her body, and she died on the exact same day, at the exact same age, 1 year apart from my father.
Oh, wow.
And as abusive as that relationship was for them, they were divorced for 50 years, but they talked on the phone every single solitary day. And when her soul left her body, Archangel Michael was in the room, as well as some of her family members that came to take her to the other side. And I watched her go immediately to my father. And he thanked her for having come through in this lifetime with him to help him learn what he needed to learn. Whatever the heck that was. And as much as I know about the other side, I still sat there in shock saying, you got to be kidding me.
Well, I want to slowly get to when you said that you saw your mom's soul leave, and you saw the archangel and so forth, and other angels and family. I want to get to that part, but before we get to that part, I want to know at what age did you start to experience the ability to see what you see? Because not everybody can.
Yeah. Well, as children, they can. But again, we're living in a 3D here. You got a brain and a head to protect you. It creates fear. So as you get older, you stop seeing it. Okay. My youngest memory was about the age of 3. And I was in bed. I heard someone calling my name. I got out. I thought it was my parents, and they were asleep. I went back to bed and started seeing all these faces around my room. And it's very scary as a child. And there was nobody I could really talk to about it. And I pulled the covers up over my face. And then they started sticking their face up against the covers. I could see the shadow when the sun came up. It was really frightening as a child. And as I got older and I started telling classmates and friends stuff that was going to happen before it happened, I got labeled a freak. And so I started developing all kinds of nervous tics and habits. And it was very tough growing up. And then I started to block it as much as I could. But even blocking it, anybody in the family, or anybody that knew anybody in the family that died, they would come to me immediately. And I would tell them the next morning, I'm like, listen, so-and-so died last night. And they're like, there's no way. I just saw him 2 days. I'm like, I'm telling you. And sure enough, they'd find out that they died. For some reason, I wasn't able to block those people, but I was able to block most of the rest of the stuff. Yeah.
That is pretty incredible. So the experiences that you had, you saw it, but at first you were terrified.
Yeah. You don't know what it is. I mean, when my dad kidnapped us and, I was doing the cooking and I would do the dishes after dinner, there was a woman about the age of 45 that would stand there and keep me company every afternoon while doing the dishes and talk to me, which I appreciated the company. I didn't really know anybody. I hadn't made friends or anything yet. I just assumed everybody saw her. I don't know if they did or they didn't. But I remember asking my older brother one day who she was, and he started laughing. He's like, oh, that's the woman that died in the house. Her husband threw her down the stairs and killed her, which I found out later was true. He was a drunk and he threw her down the stairs and broke her neck. And it scared me so much. She must have felt it because we're all energy. And she never came back again.
Really?
Yeah.
When did you stop being afraid? Because I can understand at 3 years old, you covered your head and that you still feel them there. Yeah. When did you say, wait a minute, this is normal for me? Maybe my friends at school don't see it and they're making fun of me. When did you say, hey, you know what? This is just who I am. I accept it. When did you fully accept?
About 10 years ago. And that was it.
Only 10 years ago?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought you would have accepted it all along because you've been seeing it since 3.
No, it's frightening. It's how do you live in a world where everybody tells you if you're seeing stuff, you're nuts. If you're hearing things, you must be crazy, right? Even my own father. My mother apparently was a medium, and that's why he was telling us she was crazy. When I ended up going for training, I trained for 1.5 years before I did anything. I was training at the places my mother had trained 50 years earlier. And there were some people there that still remembered her.
No way. That's incredible. Yeah. You're making me think of the movie The Sixth Sense.
Yeah. I mean, that's a lot of truth. That movie is so real. Yeah.
Mm. It's real to you.
So is Ghost, the movie Ghost with Whoopi Goldberg. So true, that movie. Yeah.
Mm. So 10 years ago, what made you decide I'm ready? Was there an
It's
incident?
not my decision, and that's the
No, but
thing.
was there an
It's
incident? Because you chose to go get trained. You didn't have to.
so I died at 27, right?
Now
And I
let's,
came.
we're going to come
Okay.
back to that. We're
All
going to
right.
come back to that.
So 10 years ago, I was going through a second divorce. I was losing my businesses. I was going crazy. I had so much stress. I was also taking care of my mom in the nursing home. And I went to see a Reiki practitioner to have some energy work done just to relax. And she recommended that I meditate. And I'm like, I can't meditate. I can't shut my brain off. I'm running 5 businesses right now. I'm going through a divorce. I'm taking care of my mother. Try it. Okay. I went home and I tried it. Well, the first time I tried it, it's cumulative. The first time I tried it, it was like they kicked the door in from the other side. They're like, she's ready. It was them deciding, not me. And I couldn't shut it off. So I was working in my own business, and I was doing, I'm also a medical esthetician. So I was doing services. And the first woman that came in, I'm like, did your aunt die recently? She's like, yeah, how'd you know that? I'm like, I have no idea how I know that. I'm like, did you clean our house out recently? They're like, yeah, we cleaned it out last weekend. I'm like, oh. I'm like, did you happen to find one of those sock puppets that looks like a monkey in the house? She goes, from the 1950s? She's like, yeah, we found one in the attic. I'm like, oh my God, you got to be kidding me. And it just continued. It got every person that came in there. I'm like, listen, there's something weird going on. I kind of know things all of a sudden. I don't know what's happening. But if I get something that's interesting, would you want to know? And they're like, oh, yeah, sure. So the next one, I'm like, are you worried about your husband for some reason? She's like, yeah. It's the first time he's ever gone on vacation without me. And he's doing some work and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh, I think he's fine. Okay. Then I'm like, do you live in this blue A-frame house on the water? She's like, oh, no, we live in this red barn with a, I'm like, oh, okay. So now I finish with her. She leaves. She turns around and comes running back into the room, holding up her cell phone. She's like, look. And it was a message from her husband that she got while we're having the service, and a picture of the blue house on the water. And it says, I found our next house.
Oh my gosh.
And by the third one, she was a widow, and her husband in full military uniform is following her through the door. And I'm like, oh my God, how do I turn this off? I was freaking because I didn't know what to do with it.
So that's why you went to seek training.
Yeah, I mean, I called everybody, and every psychic, every me. How do I shut? Oh, I don't know. I can't do that. I don't have those abilities. I'm like, what the hell? What do you mean you don't? What the heck's going on here?
Wow.
And it's the old adage, when the student's ready, the teacher will appear. And I ended up going to a lecture. And it was a medium, and she was from Boston. So I immediately tried contacting her to see if she had any appointments available, and she had nothing for like 2 months. I'm like, oh my God. Cancellation popped up the next day. So I went all the way up there to see her in Boston. And I went in, and she's like, well, show me what you can do. I'm like, I don't know how to show you anything. It just happens, right? She's like, well, why don't you try and bring through some of my family members? I'm like, I don't know how to do anything. It just happens. She's like, well, sit down and close your eyes and think about them and see who shows up. And I brought through her entire family, both generations, 3 generations back on both sides, her mothers, her fathers, all the way back to Ireland. I'm like, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was just crazy.
So was she the one that started helping you, or
she started helping me, and then from there I found someone that had more advanced skills to train me, and then she was like, I don't know what to tell you, your skills are way beyond me, I can only take you so far. And then the rest of my training literally came from the other side.
Incredible. So let's go back. You tell us you died at 27, but here you are, beautiful, vibrant, full of life.
So I hurt my back. I hurt my back when I was 22, and they wanted to do back surgery. And I just knew that if I went in for surgery, I was going to die. And that's my soul. When you have that knowing, that's your soul. And I put it off for 5 years until they told me I had no choice. I have to go in for it. And I told everybody, I said, listen, I'm going to die. I just, no, you're just afraid. You'll be fine, blah, blah, blah. So sure enough, the night before the surgery, they took me in for an MRI test. And I'm like, listen, I think I'm allergic to the dye. I had it once before. I had a really bad reaction. They're like, oh, everybody has that reaction. You'll be fine. And sure enough, as soon as they gave it to me, I died. I don't know how long I was dead for. I've never considered it a near-death experience because it wasn't near death. I was dead. I mean, it takes a while for them, to come over, look at you, go over, hit the crash cart, have the crash cart come in, inject the line, paddle you a couple of times, not working, tip the bed. I'm watching all this, but in the meantime, I'm not there. I'm literally in what I now know to be the lowest level of heaven, the fifth dimension. And I was immediately whisked there. It's absolutely incredible on the other side. And I used to tell everybody the two things that you take with you when you die is love and knowledge. But it's not just love. If you take all of your feelings with you when you go, okay, anger, hate, everything, you take it all with you. But for me, it was an overwhelming sense of love because that's how I try to live my life. And it's the highest vibration of all.
Right.
So I also got a life review. So as I'm watching everything below me happening in the hospital and out in the hallways and the room behind, I'm watching, it looks like I'm sitting in the front row of an IMAX theater. And I'm watching all the highlights of my life, the people that helped me, the people that loved me, the moments that brought me joy. I think they were trying to encourage me to go back. And then I heard from behind me that it's not really my time. I could stay if I want to, or I could go back. It was my choice. And I found out later that this was an out that I had written into my life plan because I'd had such a difficult life. I could have taken it at that point. Right. And it was a very difficult decision, to be honest with you, until I remembered that I had 2 young children at the time. And I knew that one of the reasons I came back into this lifetime was for them, to help them, to see them grow. And they brought me the most joy in my life. And as soon as I had made that decision, I was back immediately in my body.
So were you declared dead at the hospital?
No, they didn't get to that point. Like I said, it was probably 3 to 5 minutes that I was dead. I remember them tipping the table up. I could see them slapping my face back and forth, saying, "We can't lose you. We can't lose you." I didn't feel anything. I wasn't there. So that's how it worked. And I've since researched it and found out that near-death experiences, there's a lot that's lumped into that. So for instance, if you're in a car accident, it's not your time to die, but it's pretty serious. Your soul jumps out of your body at that point. My brother was 16 and involved in what could have been a fatal accident. He was pretty badly injured. And he remembers standing on the sidewalk watching everything until the paramedics came, and then he went back into his body. My girlfriend, the same thing. She got hit by a deer through the side window, and she's devout Catholic, and she thought she'd done something wrong and that she couldn't go to heaven because she saw the deer's soul go to heaven, but her soul was stuck on the roof of the car. Oh, wow. And she went back into her body once the paramedics came again. So what they're trying to do, so your soul is way too big for your body. You have some of it in your body, some of it's over your head that people call an aura. And the majority of your soul is actually in the lowest level of heaven, that 5D area. And it orchestrates the timing of the events that happen in your life. And it has the knowledge of all your lifetimes. So when something like that's going to happen, your soul jumps out of your body to save you feeling that trauma, because you do take all your feelings with you. And when you think of quantum physics, right, and the speed of light, it's almost 300 million miles a second. I love the science behind why all this stuff happens, because there is science behind everything. We are just pure energy. And when my soul left my body to go into the light at 300 million miles a second, that's one heck of a high vibration. And then it came back into my body at that speed. So my vibration is automatically much higher than most people. And that's what I attribute my ability to go back and forth to the fifth dimension so quickly, because I can go there in seconds.
Wow.
They don't allow me beyond that. I've been able to see beyond that, but they don't allow me to go beyond that while I'm tethered into this body here. But yeah, it's pretty amazing.
So you said something very interesting, that your friend thought she was going to go to hell
Well, she didn't
because
think she was going to go to hell, but she thought she wasn't going to go to heaven. I don't know if she
what's the
thought
other
maybe well, a lot of people think purgatory is here on earth. There are a lot of
option?
ghosts that are stuck here. So ghosts that are stuck here have not gone into the light. They can't travel any faster than you or I. They're I call them lower vibrational entities because that's what they are. And when I feel them, it's the same as a human being because the vibration is still low. So I don't know, maybe she thought she was going to just stay here and not go to heaven. I don't know.
So what must someone do to not be stuck? What are those ghosts?
You have to go into the light. It's that simple. I move souls into the light whenever I see them stuck here. I've moved a lot of children that are stuck here on earth because they die. They
Is
don't
it fear?
understand that they're dead and they keep looking for their parents.
So it's kind of fear in a way.
No, they just don't know. They're looking for their parents. They don't know to go into the light. They just wander from home to home because this is what they knew and they're still looking for their parents. A lot of people will call me. They'll have children in their home, calling them mommy, things like that. Yeah, they're just stuck for that reason. And you have a lot of other people that are just stuck. That's loud. But I've gone...
I have phones ringing all over the place.
Oh my goodness, you're wanted. But I've gone into homes and found, like basements or attics full of like Italian immigrants or Irish immigrants, and they're stuck here out of fear. And they congregate. We're all magnets. We're either attracting or repelling at any given time, and it makes no difference whether you have a 3D body or not, because your soul is still going to congregate. So if you've got a ghost in your house, I guarantee you probably got a lot more than one, because again, they congregate. So a lot of these immigrants that I found hadn't gone into the light, again, out of fear. And a lot of other people that die from alcohol or drug abuse or things like that, they don't go into the light because they're afraid that they've let someone down, they're going to be judged. All the things that their religions told them when they were alive has put that fear into them that they don't go into the light. So I have to reassure them that, unless they've killed someone and have no remorse, they're not going to hell. They're not going to be judged when they get to the other side, and their loved ones are waiting for them and want to see them and be with them. And yeah.
So you said your dad was waiting for your mom and thanking her, but he was an abusive person.
But that's the role he chose here for some reason. And honestly,
he can still he still went to heaven.
The only souls, to my knowledge, that are in hell is someone that sold their soul to the devil or has taken a life and has no remorse.
Gotcha.
Those are the only people that I cannot bring through. And I don't work with the demonic at that point. I don't work with those energies unless I absolutely have to.
So how do we live our lives with knowing that, hey, if I don't kill someone, I can still be mean to people, I could be nasty, I can do all these different things. As long as I don't kill somebody, I'm still going to go to heaven.
If that's your predisposition and that's how you want to be, you're not going to have a lot of joy in your life.
That's for sure.
And you're also not going to learn the lessons that you came here for. We all come here to learn 5 soul lessons so that your soul can advance. Soul's not going to advance. You're just going to keep coming back and doing the same thing over and over again. And the universe wants you to think you have choice. And that is one of the choices you have. You can either look at things from a positive aspect or a negative aspect. That is one of the choices that you have. But if you look at it from a negative aspect, you're really not going to learn what it is you need to, and you're not going to have joy in your life.
That's the part that really, I think anybody listening is, if you're going to be a nasty person, you're not going to have joy. I think that's a given, right? Because when you listen, if you step on people just to live in that penthouse up on that big building, you're going to go from here, your past, to your future alone. And who wants that?
And those are all low. So everything works off vibration, right?
Mhm.
Because your soul is pure energy. And it's like a radio station. You can't get the radio station unless you're on the right frequency, right?
Right.
So everyone that's in your life is on that frequency. And if you're living your life on that lower frequency, that lower vibration, that's what's going to be in your life. If that's how you choose to live your life. If you want to have better in your life, if you want to have more abundance, more happiness, better people around you that are surrounding you, then you need to raise your own vibration. And those lower vibrating people will drop off and higher vibrating people will come in. You know, I always told my children, you can hang around with people that are going to bring you down or bring you up. It's all your choice.
That is the best choices we can make for ourselves. So that's why I think a lot of people, and it's become even more prevalent nowadays when everyone is saying, who are your five? Who are your top? Who are the people in your inner circle? But do we have to limit it to five? What if there's 30? So when we consider the people we keep near us, don't get me wrong, you may have somebody who's really, really a great friend of yours, but would they get up at 3 a.m. and come to your aid or say, hey, you know what, I'll help you tomorrow? Right.
Some would, some wouldn't, some may for a short period of time. Things are always changing. Again, the relationships that you build, there's only, the majority of people are either going to have a karmic relationship or a soulmate. And a soulmate, I'm sure, would do that for you. A karmic relationship might do it for you for a short period of time. And whatever lesson is learned, they drop off.
Mm-hmm.
That's that.
Let me share this with you. I have a masterclass happening soon. Take a look.
Welcome to Speaking Prowess, where we believe in the power of communication to transform lives. If you're ready to take your communication skills to the next level, then mark your calendars for April 5th, because we've got something special for you. We have a lineup of some of the most influential communication experts in the industry. These are the voices that will guide you on a journey to enhance your ability to connect, influence, and succeed. At Speaking Prowess, our mission is clear: to empower you through effective communication. We know that mastering the art of communication isn't just about what you say. It's about how you say it and the impact it has on every aspect of your life. So take action now. Join us on April 5th and unlock your full speaking potential. Reserve your spot today and get ready to embark on a journey towards personal and professional growth. See you at the masterclass on April 5th.
So as you can tell, I'm excited about that.
That's great.
It's
One of the big lessons you have to learn, trust and communication. It's a big one.
It's huge.
Yeah.
Because the words we say also have to reflect the actions we take, right? And a lot of people don't.
So for some people more than others, some people have to walk the walk and talk the talk, or they're going to have instant karma. That's the bottom line. Right. I've been told that I could say things a little bit nicer, but the reality of it is some people need a little bit of tough love sometimes. I've had hundreds of students go through my program, and, doctors and lawyers were some of the toughest. They were the whiniest crybabies. Oh, you're being mean to me because I'm a lawyer. I'm like, if you don't keep telling me what you do, I don't know what you do because I don't care what you do.
Right. Yeah. So you have helped so many people, including the police. Tell us how that was tell us about your first experience, if you don't mind. And how did they even find you?
I'm sorry, I'm not understanding the question.
So you helped the police department, right? With
missing person and murder cases and stuff. I did it more for the families. The families were working with the police department. The police department didn't contact me. The families did. And I would give the information to the families. The families would take it to the police departments. Yeah.
What was your first one? And how did they even ask you?
The first one, believe it or not, was a murder case. And they tracked me down at an event that I was doing because they'd heard that I had really good abilities. And no one else had been able to give them the information that they needed. And so I was doing readings or mediumship for 15 minutes. So they sat down and booked me for an hour, and it didn't take that long. And I gave them all the details, all the information that they knew they needed. They probably weren't going to find the evidence that they were looking for, because at the time they were showing me it had been disposed of in a dumpster, which gets dumped and goes to the dump. But they were able to verify a lot of the information that I gave them as what they knew to be true. And I was able to confirm for them who the murderer was, and that was who they thought it was. However, they did get instructions from, I think it was the uncle that had been murdered, that they were not to do anything with the information, because he was going to be arrested for another murder, and he was going to end up in prison for that one. So they just needed to wait a little bit of time.
Huh. Interesting. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. Well, when you're on that route and you're on that path, right?
Is that actually what happened?
I don't know. I didn't stay in touch with them, but I did give them all the information that they needed as far as everything else, which, they did take some other details back to the police department that I was able to give them from that.
Wow, incredible. So what cases have you been able to help either find someone or?
Missing person cases. There were a few children that were missing that have been kidnapped by custodial parents that I was able to locate. And there was another one that I worked on that he had not gone into the light. So when they don't go into the light, I can't tell if they're dead or alive if they don't tell me. And he did not want his family to know he was dead. So he literally led us on a wild goose chase all through Boston, all through different places. Come to find out, every place he was taking us were places that he had worked at when he was alive, when he was younger. And I mean, I was up there with them, passing out flyers and asking people if they'd seen him. And yeah, when they finally found his body, I had him come through, and I'm asking him, why did you keep telling us what you were doing and that you were alive? I mean, he literally showed us how he got out of the area, because, when they are still lower vibrational and hadn't gone into the light, he got out of the area by hitching a ride with a tractor trailer truck. I mean, you show it. He goes, well, they weren't ready. And his family admitted that they were not ready to know that he had died. Wow. And then I didn't know he wasn't married to his wife. I didn't know they weren't married. And he just kept saying that he wants to get her a wedding ring. He just keeps saying he wants to get you a wedding ring. I said, why? I don't understand. She goes, oh, we're not really married. I said, oh, I didn't know that. Yeah. But then I moved him into the light, and he came back immediately.
Wow. Incredible.
Yeah.
So what is it like for you now that you've done this studying, training, 10 years later? What is it like for you now? Are there visions that you see? Are there angels you see?
Oh, I see everybody. I talk to everybody. Yeah, regular basis. But however, sometimes it's a little weird, because it's like, an episode of The Walking Dead. There's spirits everywhere. There's souls everywhere. And I went to the grocery store one day, and there's a guy near the front door coming in. I could, he looked like a drunk or a drug addict or something. And I couldn't tell if he was real so I'm looking at him, and the fact that he read my thoughts and knew and saw me looking at him. He's like, you can see me. And I'm like, uh-oh. He's like, you need to come talk. I'm like, listen, I'm not working right now. Because when I was trained, turn it on, turn it off, basically. Otherwise, they'll come to you all the time. You'll have no peace in your life at all. And so he got angry. And there was a display of hot dog and hamburger buns at the door. He picked up a package and threw it at me. And it only went maybe 3 feet. But the poor girl at the register saw the hot dog packet come up, and she's like, oh my God, did you see that? And I'm like, yep. And I just kept walking.
Wow. So you can turn it off.
So we are always in control of our abilities once you learn how to control your abilities. And we all have, if you're doing this work, I have what's called a gatekeeper. And my gatekeeper, I've actually only seen him twice. He's an American Indian brave. And he's only talked to me twice, literally nose to nose. And but his job is to line up the souls on the other side and keep them at bay for me. So for instance, if I was doing platform mediumship with an audience of 200 or 300 people. The first time I ever did that, I sat there and for a second I panicked. I'm like, oh my God, what happens if nobody comes through? Right? Ego took over. Right? And all I heard from him was, I'll do my job, you do yours. And sure enough, every time I went over to someone in the audience, he would have the person that was for them come through that I could describe and they could confirm and give them a message. And yeah. Wow. So that's his job. So, you know, his instructions are that no one can come through to me unless I'm working, unless it's an emergency. And there have only been 2 people, 2 souls that he's let through come through to me that have been emergencies.
What do you mean by emergencies?
So for instance, the first one that came through was a friend of mine's wife who had died about a year previous. And I'm taking a shower and all of a sudden I turn around, she's standing there. I'm like, what the hell are you doing in my shower, Peggy? She's like, Steve's going to kill himself. You've got to go. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, I can't. I said, I have to be on a plane. I said, I'll take care of it. Don't worry. And I got on the phone and I called him and I talked to him for a little bit. And I said, you know, listen, I said, I'm going to be there Monday morning, bright and early for coffee. I said, so make sure I'm going to pick up some donuts. I want to make sure you're there. Okay. Next day I called him. I'm like, just reminding you, I'm coming over Monday. Okay. I get there Monday. I said, listen, I said, what the hell's going on? Peggy came to see me. I said, she said you were going to kill yourself. Broke down in tears. He's like, yeah, she went to see my brother too. He goes, I don't know why I'm here. I don't want to be here anymore. And we talked it all through and it worked out okay. The next one was a friend of mine's fiance, and they were from the Massachusetts area, but they lived up in Maine. And they had been down for the weekend to visit his children, and he got really sick. So he ended up in the hospital in the ICU. He had pneumonia. And after like the second day, they told her he'll be fine. We're going to put him in a regular room today. We'll probably release him in about 2 days. So she decided to go back to Maine to go to work. And he showed up to see me. He's like, I don't know what's happening. He goes, I can't get back in my body. I'm like, what are you talking about? You can't get back in your body. He's like, I'm in the hospital. He goes, I went to see Lynn at work. And when I went back, I don't know what I did. I can't get back in my body. I called her. I said, I couldn't tell her he was dead. I just called her. I said, what's going on? Dennis is in the hospital. He got pneumonia. They're supposed to release him Thursday. I said, if you need me, you call me. Okay. She's like, okay. So she got the call about an hour after I knew, and they told her he had passed. And I explained to him that he didn't cause it. His body gave out, and that's why he couldn't get back into it. It was his time to go. She was devastated. He was devastated. I went to the funeral, and I just said, listen, I said, you know what I do. I said, when you're ready, I said, I have a message for you from Dennis. You come see me. And it took her another year to actually come see me. And since then, you know, I've trained her on how to talk to him and things, and they, you know, he sends her signs and they talk all the time, and it's, it's good. She misses him, but at least she knows he's around, and it's a lot more comforting for her.
So when you say he's around, did he not go to heaven?
When you go to heaven, you can come back and forth. Remember, 300 million miles a second. You're there in a second. As soon as you say someone's name, they show up immediately. Wow. Doesn't matter where in the world they are. They can get there in seconds. So they're there. And they want to be there. They want to hang around you. They live vicariously through us without a body. That's why they used to say, you know, set an extra plate at the dinner table and they'll join you. And they absolutely will, as they they enjoy it. They have fun. When you're having fun, they're having fun. And when you're stuck in grief and crying, they can't move on. They're stuck in grief and crying just the same.
It made me think that and you said when you say their name, they'll come. But what if somebody changed their name and you only knew them and their later name?
It's whatever name they died at, whatever name they went by when they were dying. That's it. Okay. That's the last name they had here when they were here on Earth. And your name changes every reincarnation. Your name changes. Your body changes. The soul is the only thing that stays the same. And you don't even have to say it. All you got to do is think about them. You think about them, they show up. They're there in a second. You know, I don't need to hear it.
What's in a name, right? It's not. I don't think it's
It's
the
just
name
to
that much.
it's just to identify them. And
Identify.
quite honestly, I had a missing person case I was working on fairly recently, and I had the woman call him, and I identified him. That's all I can do because I don't know these people. You know
Right.
them. I don't know them. All I can do is give you what I get. And I was getting a guy in a hospital gown, but dead in a morgue in San
Mm,
Diego. Okay. And it's not him, but it's probably someone that's very similar with the same name.
mm,
Okay. A lot of people have the same name. And if he's identifying as someone that's similar, when he heard the name, he came through immediately. But I was able to physically identify him, and he was similar to the person she was looking for.
right.
So I don't
Right.
know it's not the same person. Usually it is, but
Mm,
every now and then there's somebody else that sneaks in, and he's still coming through. He really wants to be identified and found by someone because
mm,
he still keeps popping through. I'm talking about him now, and he's popping through again.
mm. That's got to be so sad for someone who wants
Yeah,
to
it's
notify.
hard for them because it's hard for me to move them into the light too because they don't always want to go.
Mm. So a lot of Jane Does and John Does,
Yeah.
nobody knows what's occurred.
They can identify them. We have wonderful ways of identifying people now, but that costs money and people don't want to put the money into it.
Mhm.
So it's all a money issue. Everything breaks down to money. Money is energy. That's why it's called currency.
That's
And
exactly it.
unfortunately, it's getting dumped into evil and not good in this world right now.
Mm. It is. It is. So you wrote a book. What was what
I've
was
written 4 books.
the reason? Yeah, okay, but the first one, what was the reason to even write that first book?
The first book, so I was writing my autobiography. I actually started my autobiography 30 years ago and had pieces of it on my computer. And, I raised my kids. I had my businesses. And as my kids got older, one of them sat down and found it on my computer. So I wiped the whole thing out. I didn't want my
Mm,
kids knowing my past, bottom line, or knowing about their grandparents. And so I finally started getting into writing my autobiography, and my abilities had already opened up for a while. I'd already been trained. I was actually teaching mediumship and psychic development and taking care of my mom in the hospital and the nursing home. And I kept hearing, you got to write the book. You got to write the book. And I'm like, I'm writing the book. And they're like, no, not that book. I'm like, what? What do you want me to write? They wanted me to write a handbook of everything that I was teaching in mediumship and psychic development class. So the students would have something tangible to go
mm,
back on. I'm like, fine. If you want me to write that, then you need to get somebody from the other side that's really good at this to help me because I got way too much going on. And I
mm.
literally wrote and published that book in 6 weeks.
Oh, wow.
And then I went back to writing my autobiography.
So, June, how can somebody listening in, or even if they listen on the replay, how can they get in touch with you?
So they can go to the website, juneedward.com. Very simple.
Oh, I'm going to
There,
put that up here for people.
there's links to all my books on there just to make it easier to find. There's a free webinar that people can sign up for and learn a little bit more about how energy works. And if they're interested in the relationship mastery program, after they do the webinar, they can sign up for a call with me to see if they're a good fit. The relationship mastery program is just a 7-week program that teaches you how to change your energy, raise your vibration, maintain the law of attraction by balancing your energy, and bring you anything and everything you want in your life.
Is there 2 E's in your website, June?
Yep, June Edward. Yep.
Okay, I wanted to check it. So that's it right there.
Yep.
Let me just make sure. That's it, correct?
That's it.
Perfect. There you go. JuneEdward.com, people. So go there, get in touch with June, look into her books.
They can book services with me as well. I do Akashic record reading, destiny card reading, mediumship, whatever you need.
Wow. So is that one of your businesses that you go and you do readings for a group of people?
I don't anymore. So what I'll do private readings. And Akashic records, which are people's past lives, things like that. I will do a house clearing if it's something local and it's something that needs to be done.
What's local?
I'm in Florida. I'm on the east coast of Florida, so if it's local, within an hour of travel time, then I would take care of that still. Yeah.
Awesome. I am so happy that we got to spend some time together. And thank you for sharing your story and being so candid and upfront with everything. And the fact that you are helping people. And a lot of times for us, if it's a family member, we always have them here, right? Because like you said, they're still around. But I believe I have guardian angels constantly
So we
helping.
all have a guardian angel. So a guardian angel is not an angel. Okay. Angels are a completely separate race. They're not human. Their only job is to help us, but you have to ask. That's their rule. If you don't ask, they can't help you. A guardian angel is someone that steps up when you're born, that has been connected to you, previous lives, etc. And they offer to be your guardian angel. If no one steps up, then they elect someone. And it can change. I had someone yesterday I was speaking with that I think they said they was their brother, I think, that had passed away, and they saw them when they were almost in a fatal accident. They saw him and he literally saved them. So someone like that passes to the other side and wants to be your guardian angel, they allow that, and your original one steps back to oversee. So you actually have two guardian angels at that point.
Wow, beautiful.
And a guardian angel can step in at any time to save you or give you information different from an angel.
Well, I've been saved so many times in my life, so
Yeah,
I feel totally blessed.
I agree. Myself as well.
Yeah, absolutely. June, thank you so much. This has been so much fun and inspirational, and you've taught me so much. So I thank you for that.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Thank you, and have yourself an amazing and rest and have a rest of a beautiful day. Thank you, everybody. Take care.